Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, our viewers and listeners, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to another special TIHA Archival Conversation where we gather, preserve, and celebrate the lives of Africa's trans, gender diverse, and intersex trailblazers, both on the continent and also in its diaspora. I'm your host, Victor Mukasa, and today we are sitting with a living piece of African history. This is not just a conversation, we are archiving. So our lenses today are pointed to South Africa. And here in over there in South Africa, our guest is widely regarded as the oldest recorded South African trans woman. Trans woman, yes, but because we have not really done archiving all over the continent, we also think at this point that she is the oldest on the continent, at least who has been recorded or documented. Our guest identifies as transsexual, and we will maintain that during this show as we refer to her. Born in 1952 in the Eastern Cape, she came of age in an era when silence, stigma, and invisibility surrounded gender diverse people. Yet somehow she carved a path where no path existed. After finishing high school in the early 1970s, she was set to join the South African Army, one of the most rigid, hyper-masculine institutions of its time. On her way to start her service, she will be telling us a story of who she met and how that shaped her future. In 1975, at a time when such procedures were almost unheard of in Africa, she underwent gender-affirming surgery, becoming a medical, social, and cultural pioneer long before healthcare frameworks or human rights protections existed. She is an author. Her powerful autobiography, Twee Lewens, that's in Afrikaans. We will have her correct that for us, which means Two Lives, originally written in Afrikaans and now available in English, is one of the earliest published personal accounts of a transsexual woman in Southern Africa, and I will say in Africa. Through it, she documents a life lived across two identities, two eras, and two worlds. Her courage shaped possibilities for generations such as ours today that would follow. Her name is Elise Bishop, and today she joins us to preserve her journey for the archive. Elise Bishop, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much, Victor. I'm very pleased to hear your voice.
It is so good to see you, Elise Bishop. In fact, it is an honor and a privilege for me to be seated here with you today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your words.
You are a legend. I have read a lot about you, and I believe by the time people finishing listening to this story, they will know why you are a legend. So we're truly honored to have you here.
Thank you.
And
I think actually I'm the one honored too.
Oh, Mama, Grandma, you're everything to us. It is us who are lucky to see you in our lifetime. Yeah, you look amazing. I love your scarf. Is that a South African scarf?
Oh no, my cousin brought it for me from Uzbekistan. Can you believe it? She went on the silk trade and the trade route, and I got it about a week ago. So I said I'll be wearing it today.
We are even more honored to learn about where the scarf comes from. But Elise, here at TIHA, as we archive, we try to go back in the life of the trailblazer, like you are, and we go back all the way to your childhood, because that makes us understand the journey that you tell us that you have taken. So we would like to take you back to little Elise, back in 1952 onwards. When did you first become aware of your womanhood, Elise, even in a world that didn't yet have the language or who you are? Well, before we go so deep in that, oh my God, look at that. Before we go into that, probably to set the tone in terms of how you identify, you strictly identify as a transsexual woman. What does that? Can you explain what you mean by that, given everything that surrounds our identity names?
Well, I think identity is something that touches everyone. And I think it's become very difficult to speak about it because some people are really antagonistic as far as it's concerned. Other people don't accept you for what you are. I know there is a very thin line to draw between transsexual and transgender. But transgender in South Africa really is a word that has only come to light around about the beginning of the 21st century. If you consider that I was operated exactly 50 years ago, the 18th just passed, I was 50 years old in my new identity. And I identified as transsexual then. I won't be able to consider myself transgender at all. I had to go through a lot of pain to get to where I am. And my identity established itself eventually in 1975. And I attended a transsexual clinic because I was transsexual. The word was used by psychiatrists and psychologists.
Yes.
Transgender didn't exist as it's known today.
Right.
So whilst everybody has the right to choose their own way of living, I prefer to be referred to as transsexual, and I prefer to be referred to as a sex change and not as gender affirming and all that type of thing. Those are all new titles and names of things. I don't like that. And the thing that I touch on toes, but as I say, it's to each his own. Everybody must make up their own mind how they want to live. But I'm not for pronouns. It makes life too difficult for straights to come to terms. That's one of the complaints that usually are uttered when I do discussions of the book. And they say, why is it necessary to have pronouns? I said, I don't know why it's necessary to have pronouns. I'm not very much in favor thereof. Because I mean, can I speak to you as a they and a them? Ordinary English-speaking people in the street would never be able to identify with such an expression. And if they do, I think it'll just be for a sentence or two, and that's it.
Well, you are Elise Bishop. You traveled your own journey. You are transsexual, and that is what you are. And that is what the rest of us who didn't bring you up, who are not you, will have to take.
Thank you.
Elise Bishop.
Thank you. I appreciate you accepting that.
And also here at TIHA, we respect that. And because these are personal journeys, not group journeys. So we will go back to your beginnings. What was it like growing up in the Eastern Cape in the 1950s, 1960s? When do you begin to realize difference from the majority and all that? Whatever parts you're comfortable talking about your beginnings.
Well, it's all contained in the autobiography. I have not kept anything back.
How do you say the autobiography in Afrikaans?
Autobiography.
No, in the name of your book.
Okay,
In
okay.
Afrikaans.
In Afrikaans, it's Twee Lewens, 2 lives, because it literally translates to being 2 lives. Up to the age of 23, I lived as a man, because of the laws in South Africa. You couldn't walk around as a woman. You couldn't pass yourself off as one. And I discovered that there was something wrong with me already at a very early age. Round about 3.5 to 4 is when I realized, and I mean, you're a child. You don't even think you have that vocabulary to understand what is going on with you. So if I say I realized it then already, it's what I recall in my mind, that I became obsessed with my sister's christening robes, for example. I would take them out of the cupboard with a coat hanger and hook it into my pants, spread it out over my knees and drive around on the tricycle with it. You know, that type of thing. And
when that happened, did you have any challenges with your parents?
Yeah. Not big ones at that point, but as I grew older, around about 4 or 5, my grandfather was a very stern old man. He was a teacher of mathematics and science, and he seemed to think I was passing through a phase. And he's constantly referring, man, the child is passing through a phase. It'll come right. It'll come right. Eventually, he took me to the doctor to find out if all the toys are actually in the cot, if I can put it euphemistically like that. And the doctor, of course, inspected me, and he came back with the answer, no, everything is there. Everything is there. I can understand how demeaning that was to have to endure. But as for a child, you're not aware of such things, you know.
Right.
You do what Opa says, and that's it. And if Opa smiles and says, fine, and pats you on the head, then you're very happy because he wasn't cross with you. But of course, as life progressed and you had to go to school, you started life on a negative because the boys always had something to find fault with you. There was something that you did. You perhaps sat differently, you walked differently, or you talked differently, that made them find fault with you and tease you and bully you and fight with you. That was a very miserable time of my life. But growing up in the middle of the Karoo, in a small town of 3,000 people, where do you go and complain? If you I had a single parent mother. If I complain with her, she would be very unhappy. And she's already got a lot of unhappiness to contend with. So I didn't complain to her. I couldn't complain to my grandfather because he would just ignore it and say, man, that's nonsense. And I didn't want to share it with my grandmother, for whom I had a lot of love, because she might be disappointed. And I never wanted to disappoint her. So you had to keep it all to yourself. You had to fathom out what is going on in your life. There's nothing you can read. There's nobody that can give you any advice that can tell you.
1950s.
Yeah, 1958 already. 1958, 1959. Now I'm in school in Sub A and Sub B. The first 2 years of schooling, I don't know what you call it, your side of the globe. But yeah, it was those days, Sub A and Sub B, the first 2 years. And it was really in the junior school that most of the hurt occurred. When you, and remember, you only reach teenage years in senior school. But in your childhood is where you got hurt the most by the bullying that took place at school. You cried easily, but you couldn't show your tears because if you did, you're a sissy. And I had to be strong for my mother's sake because I was the only boy.
Right.
But I couldn't participate in the sports. I wasn't a rugby star, even although I was christened for one of the Springbok rugby players. But I've had no interest in sport at all. But I was forced to play rugby. I was forced to run athletics. I was forced to run cross country. I was forced to take swimming lessons. I mean, it is how schooling was those days. If you didn't toe the line, you had the rod. And
Wow.
it was, so you had to just endure it. And to endure it in those days was very difficult. At night time, when you in your bedroom, you'd cry in the dark and you'd feel sorry for yourself. But then I discovered that that actually is not a good thing. It is going to make me a very, what is the word now, that depressed person.
Right.
When I didn't want to be a depressed person, but I didn't know that that is what's depression. You don't know the word. Your vocabulary didn't extend into something like that yet. You were still a child, but you'd feel sorry for yourself. Please,
Right.
God, can't you change me? Please change me. Make me something, someone
It must
acceptable.
have been so lonely, just you going through,
All that
this
on one's,
yourself.
yes, by yourself, because you didn't have people that you could actually share it with. It's only after I was conscripted into the army in 1970 that I actually, for the first time, for example, heard of the word masturbation. I'd never heard for something like that ever before. And you
And
must
wait,
remember,
before we get into that, before that time in 1970, all these things you're talking about of junior school, high school, you never saw anybody who you thought might be like you or heard of anybody in South Africa talk about it.
No. That if they were, they hid it very well. But if you look, now that one is very old and you look at the history books and so on, there must have been others, because my class had about 60 students. So if there were 60 pupils in my class and I was the only one, it was really highly unlikely that I was the only one who had this problem. The other person just didn't identify himself and saw possibly what I've got to endure and didn't want to go the same route I had to go through. So I never knew of anybody else at school.
So no words, you're just starting to hear words like masturbation only when you get to the army?
That's the first time I heard about it. I never knew that something like that existed. And I made friends with somebody in the army. And I must understand also, I'm speaking now of 1970. 1970, South Africa was still a very racist country.
Right.
You had racism here, absolutely at top level, a very conservative country. And people like me would have been frowned upon. You couldn't come out into the open and say this, that, and the other. Please help me. I have got problems and I need to be helped. Please help me. You couldn't do that. You would be trampled upon. You would be discarded. But I had the good fortune, and one can read that in the book. I was always just in the right place at the right time with the right people.
Right.
And even though I had to work in an office where one lady was sitting knitting all the time and the other one was chatting to her friends on the phone all the time, they accepted me for what and who I am. And they drew me into their conversation, and we were partners in conversing and having a good time in the office, having tea together, chatting about the other intake that is due to begin with their conscription, and that type of thing. You felt at home. You had friends.
Yeah, you got a click.
But at the same time, you know that they're very conservative, so you can't open up to them and say who and what you are. and you had never heard of being gay. So the very first time it's actually, I'm now just going ahead of the story. After finishing up in the army, and I'm very pleased to say something very positive occurred to me during the army days, and that is that I was taught the lesson of perseverance. If you persevere, nobody will find fault with you. There, for example, was a rope. You had to climb a rope and swing across the river to get to the other side. And there was no ways that I could do it. So I'd go up two paces up the rope, and I'd slip down to the bottom. I'd go up 2 more, and I'd slip down to the bottom. But I never stopped. I showed them I am trying all the time. Yeah. And that was a trait that actually carried me through that 12-month period, because conscription those days was 12 months. It carried me because they saw that perseverance led to some leadership qualities. And I actually finished up the army a 2-stripe corporal, which that is something I was exceedingly proud of, because the new intake, some of the boys had to come to the same spot where I had to go to the army, but there were two intakes in a year. One was January and one was June. So there were boys from my matric class, I don't know what you call it with you, but the last year of school.
The end of high school.
That's it, end of high school. I went directly in January. Some of them came in June. So when they walked past you and you wore the coat, they had to pull up straight. And
yes,
they didn't. That's it. And I got my own back on them. I chased them around the corner. So I feel that is perhaps, I might not have matured 100% of the time yet.
But you learned something there. Good lessons there.
I knew I'm still having something wrong with me, but I have been able to hide it.
Yes.
Because of endurance and maintaining your sense of responsibility, proving that you will not give up. You're going to try all the time. And I did. And that self-protection came from that. Eventually, I was then transferred to a little town in the middle of nowhere. It was a junction for all the trains moving north and south in South Africa.
That's in 1971?
No, 1971, yes, that's correct, 1971. I was then at the magistrate's office. I worked for the magistrate's office. 69 Rand per month. Now you can convert that into dollars yourself.
I wish Liz was going to tell us what that is. 69 Rand? Wow.
69. And you could even save a couple of Rand those days. Anyhow, I won't go into the detail of what I paid for a room and that type of thing. But I made friends with 3 old ladies that were very, very dear to me. I don't even recall how I actually got to know them. One was a neighbor. I remember she was a neighbor, and she introduced me to the other 2. And we would meet in the evenings together at different houses, the 3 different houses of these ladies, for tea. And we would do needlework, and we would crochet, and we would knit, and we'd scandal about everybody in town. But every night, somebody brought something to eat. And then we had a jolly good time. I was very fond of these 3 old ladies. And one night, I actually took them into my confidence, and I said to them, look, something is wrong with me somewhere. I don't know what it is, but I need to be a woman. I cannot be a man. I don't want to be a man. Something in me tells me I'm a woman. And so the one lady says to me, Now tell me, she's actually cajoling me and says, what do you think you are going to look like as a woman? I said, I think I'll fit the role. I think I'll fit the role. So one night, I actually bought clothing in town. On the context, it was for my mother's birthday. And I dressed myself up and I made up my face and I put on a wig and I walked up the street to them and knocked on the door. And nobody recognized me. And I said, I'm looking for Mrs. Terry Marie. That's another lady with whom I boarded. And they said, come in, I'll just phone her and see whether she's home. And as I came in, the others were already having tea. And they offered me tea as well. I said, thank you. And as they brought in the tea, I said to them, but don't you realize who I am? Don't you recognize me? And no, we've never met before. Where have we met? I said, I see you every night. It's me. It's Pierre. And I took off the wig, but you saw all the cups rattling and pieces of cake. They got the fright of their life. And unfortunately, everybody was laughing. And but then it turned very serious eventually. Before I went home that night, it turned very serious. And they said to me, look, you have to go and see a doctor. You must go and see a doctor because something is really not right. I was very frightened of that. But as fate would have it, the next day when I went to work, the chief magistrate called me into his office. I worked in the magistrate's office. He called me into his office and said to me, I'm in big trouble because somebody saw me masquerading as a woman in the high street.
Right.
So somebody had recognized me and reported me to him.
Wow.
He said to me, do you realize in what big trouble you can be? Because it is, what is the word now? It's contra to it's against the law. You cannot walk around in the street dressed up as a woman. He says, you must go and see a doctor. And again, as I say, everybody was always in the right place at the right time.
Right.
If it didn't happen with those three old ladies, it would never have come into the open.
Exactly.
And now it was into the open, and I was referred to the doctor. And again, there, fate intervened, because the doctor, Solly Ferreira, the doctor, was a boyfriend of my mother when she was at school. Now, can you imagine how far that ball has been tumbling now?
Right. It was being it was being set for you all along by the universe.
And he actually put me in his own car and took me down to Elizabeth, to those days a psychiatrist, because they thought.
Port Elizabeth, you said?
Yeah, that's the Port Elizabeth is about 500 kilometers away. No, it's even more. Yeah, 500 to 600
So those days, the psychiatrists were not very, there were not so many psychiatrists that you had to travel all that way.
Yeah, no, there weren't psychiatrists in the little towns. You know, they were little dorpies, little settlements and so on.
Yes.
Yeah, there you had 3,000 or 4,000 inhabitants.
Right.
And then, you know, because of racism, you still had the township where the black people had to stay, and they were ruled by the laws of those days. So there was a lot of segregation that took place. Yeah. Nonetheless, he took me down to the psychiatrist in Port Elizabeth, and the psychiatrist then told me I am transsexual. Wow. And that is the very first time I encountered the word transsexual.
This is around 73?
yeah, 72, beginning of 73.
Wow, is when you
Yeah.
first hear the word transsexual.
And I tell you, I could have jumped up and down with joy. At least
Why?
now my condition had got a name.
Right.
It's not tonsillitis, it's not appendicitis, it's
Yes.
transsexualism. You
That's
understand? And now I felt I had a place in society. I'm transsexual, so there, go for it. So he referred me to the Academic Hospital in Cape Town,
Wow.
and I was transferred by the Department of Justice to work in Cape Town. Everybody helped. Can you imagine that the doctor went to the magistrate and said, please help the child. You arrange for a transfer to Cape Town. And they did. Everything just happened. I don't know. You know, today I'm very much a non-believer, but I grew up very conservatively, and you were a believer. So I believe that God was there for me at the right time all the time.
Right.
But when I got to Cape Town, I was again very depressed because I didn't know Cape Town. I was very far from all the people that I've ever known in my life. I was very lonely. I was referred to Professor Pimstone at the Academic Hospital in Cape Town, but I was in a city, a very, very beautiful, but a very big city. I didn't have my own transport to make use of buses. How am I going to get to a Professor Pimstone at this big academic hospital? And you felt total desperation because you need help, but now that help is in your own hands. You've got to go and get that help. And in those days, you know, you still rented rooms from people. You didn't just move into a flat. Yeah, and I rented a room from friends of my mother's in Cape Town, in Tamboerskloof in Cape Town. And across the road from them, there was a Jewish family who had two young sons. The younger one was my age, but he was studying to become a doctor at the University of Cape Town. And he and I became friends, and I told him my problem and what the scenario is, being transsexual. And as I say, he was studying to become a doctor, and he said, you know, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. And he brought home 6 testosterone injections. He says,
so he knew about transsexual.
Yes. I never absolutely knew anything about hormones, but he's going to give me injections now that is going to make me look more manly, and people will accept me more easily. But you know, you were always just looking for acceptance. You just wanted to be also a happy person. So I agreed to him giving me the injections. He gave me one every month for 6 months. But nothing changed. Nothing made me more manly or anything like that. I was still just me. So he says, well, it's not working. And of course, you felt miserable. At the same time, my father said to me, probably on the intervention of my mother, I must come and join the bank up in Pretoria, which was now 1,000 miles away from Cape Town.
From Cape Town.
And being so distraught after nothing working down in Cape Town, I accepted the invitation and went up to Pretoria. And I was in Pretoria working at the bank when I discovered that one of the army inmates that went up to the army on the train in 1970 was also working at the bank. And but of course another branch. And so we became friends. And he was gay, but I knew I wasn't. So although I was attracted to males, I
Yes.
didn't want to have anything to do with them because I'm not a male. I want to be a woman.
Right.
You know, it's a very strange scenario in one's life. You are
Mm-hmm.
wanting, and these are people that are wanting to offer their friendship, but at the
Right.
same time, you are accepting their friendship, but you're
Mm-hmm.
also rejecting it. Anyhow, I had a large group of very, very good, friendly gay men in my life.
Right.
And we were very, very good friends. They all looked after me.
Mm-hmm.
I've never ever been to a gay club. They introduced me to a gay club. There was a beauty competition in the Madame Butterfly in Pretoria, which was one of the gay clubs. Those days you had security at the front door because it was against the law being gay. Stonewall already happened in 1969, but it didn't fall over here in South Africa before
Right.
uh, the late 1970s.
Right.
Anyway, one of them said, did you know there's a transsexual clinic in Pretoria at the HF Verwoerd Hospital? And they brought me somebody who had actually undergone such a operation. This person was a bad choice as far as I was concerned because they didn't look like a woman at all. But nonetheless, I was listening because there was something I needed to know. I can
Yeah.
perhaps get help there.
Mm-hmm.
And I went for help to this transsexual. I had friends at the bank who actually took me to the hospital, to the transsexual clinic.
You had
And
good friends. Which year was this when they took you there? 75,
1972,
72.
1970.
Okay.
No, wait, 1972, I was in Cape Town, 73,
70.
1973.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and so I had my first interview at a transsexual clinic with a Professor Exner. And you had to go every Tuesday afternoon to him subsequently, but dressed up as a woman with a note in your handbag saying you're under doctor's treatment and you are allowed to dress up as a woman. You are not masquerading as one, trying to be a sexual enticement for other reasons or whatever. You are getting medical attention. Then some of these friends who
Well,
had my course, they would take me to the hospital every Tuesday, and then you'd have interviews with Professor Exner and with other psychologists and welfare officers that come and inspect your home to see under what circumstances you are living,
yeah, yeah.
what is the friendship that you have, whether there's stability in your life, what is your
Mm,
work scenario, what are the
mm,
reports from your seniors at work, you know, all that
mm.
type of thing that you would want to know about somebody who's seeking help from you.
Yeah. But
And that,
Elise, just before that, this hospital in Pretoria, transsexual clinic that you mentioned, did you ever find out in 1972 what was behind it? Why was it set up? Like what inspired them to set up a transsexual clinic in
well,
Pretoria during that period?
well, that is very strange. One cannot actually put your finger on it, but there was a lot of exploratory work that was undertaken at the
Mm,
Addington Hospital in Durban. Durban is right on the east coast of the country.
mhm,
And that overflowed into Pretoria. There was
mhm.
also feedback from the Groote Hospital in Cape Town into the transsexual clinic. You must remember, those were very, very conservative days. As
Mhm,
I say, homosexualism was against the law.
mhm,
And the only way that two guys could be socially acceptable in
mm,
South Africa would have been if one of them was a woman. And The woman would go for an operation at own request.
Wow.
And not be selected as a candidate, but at own request. And when they got home, they forgot what made them gay in the first instance. And their relationships would just tumble down and break up, and there would be so much unhappiness that one of them, and mainly the woman, would go to the highest building in Pretoria, which was called the Pointons building, and jump off and commit suicide. And to prevent all this, the transsexual clinic was born, and their selection and evaluation paid a very, very big price. You had to endure everything they requested to establish that you are a suitable candidate for such an operation. You couldn't have the operation done at request anymore. So, as far as the clinic is concerned, it served a very positive portion of transsexual life at the time.
Right.
And I'm proud to say I was selected by them as a suitable candidate.
Right.
It was the most happy day of my life. My mother had to come up from Port Elizabeth to see the doctor in my presence when they told her what is going to happen. Does she accept me? Does she want to continue loving me? Of course, there was a lot of tears and a lot of discussions that took place, probably a whole afternoon.
Right.
But I was a child, and a mother's love can never be usurped. And she never stopped loving me.
Right.
So she stood by me all the time. And I was now already 22. You must remember another thing that was important those days was you attained majority at the age of 21. And you had to sign off authority for the operation to be done on your body. Because if anything should have gone wrong, you must not have any claim against the doctors. And you couldn't do that signature before you attained majority at the age of 21. Now, I was already 23 at that time. 23. When my mother said to them, it's fine, I can have the operation, but I have got to sign it off. I must carry that responsibility, which I did. I signed it off. And on the 18th of November, 1975, that is a couple of days ago, a week ago, 50 years ago, half a century ago, I underwent my operation.
Right.
And it was those days, top and bottom, all in one go. It was a very, very big, all in one go. I was in the theatre for 7 hours. There was not separate operations that were done those days. These days, the big failure of it all was hormonal treatment. I was never placed on any hormonal treatment apart from 6 months prior to the operation. I was not ever thereafter told I have to be on hormonal treatment. And to this day, I've not had any hormonal treatment. And I don't understand, if I consider how many times I've already been in hospital, how many doctors know about me, that they've only now that I've developed osteoporosis and have a stoop, that they say it's because you've got no hormones.
Oh, no.
You understand? So there were lots of battles we had to fight, and this battle I only heard of as an old person. What does it help me now to start with hormonal treatment? So I'm not even taking it up now because I'm 73 already. It's just another expense for a pensioner, so I'm not doing it. I've got my prosthesis. I've got the vaginoplasty done, as it was those days, not even known as a vaginoplasty. But I am a happy person. I, at the same time, had a lot of colleagues who helped me. My boss helped me. The one bank transferred me as a young man out of the branch on a Friday afternoon and transferred me to another branch where I walked in on the Monday morning as a woman. That was now for the 6 months prior to the operation. I had to live 100% of the time as a full woman would live, but give monthly feedback to the transsexual clinic as to how I was progressing, how I was being accepted, who was asking me on a date, what happened on the date, were you able to handle the man and, and not get molested in any way. It was a time filled with trepidation, really, because you never knew when somebody was going to stick a knife into your back.
Right.
But one also lived through that. So the 18th of November 1975 dawned, and I was pushed into the theatre. And I realized now it's a point of no return.
Right.
So I said goodbye to the little chap that never gave me any problems in my life, but was even the biggest problem of my life.
Right.
And I just said to him, please just count for me when the narcotics are going to be starting to work. And before he reached 3, I was already under. And 7 hours later, I was out of the theatre and back in the ward. And the colleagues from the bank on the Wednesday, those days, the banks closed on Wednesday afternoons. In those days, you had an afternoon off in the middle of the week. And one Wednesday, I was in hospital for 6 weeks. One Wednesday afternoon, the whole staff came to visit me.
They came to see you.
All 28 of them came in to see me. People were very kind to me. Possibly out of curiosity, possibly out of positive attitudes. I couldn't care. I might be something very new to them, but I had to stand myself. I had to protect myself. I had to convince them I don't have AIDS. I had to convince them I don't have TB. I had to convince them that I am just an ordinary person who is now a woman, who was previously transsexual. I couldn't identify as heterosexual, not that I wanted to be, but I did consider myself those days, until I didn't know any better, that I am now a proper woman who cannot have children and who doesn't menstruate and who has a beard. So I cajoled myself into the belief that there are many women alive who cannot have children. So what makes them different from me?
Exactly.
There are many women who actually have
they grow beard.
I've got beard. So what makes them different to me?
Right.
So I am a woman. I dressed accordingly, but I was never outlandish. And I think that was the thing that saved me. I had to blend with the normal living conditions. You have no idea, after my book was published, how many people have come to me in search of help, because some of their children were already masquerading as the opposite sex and had gone to school as the opposite sex, not knowing where to turn to for help. And it's really, those are the ones where there was still some compassion from parents. But you get parents again that put the children on the street and say, go and look for yourself what life is about. I don't want to be associated with you at all. So there's a lot of unhappiness that surrounds transgender.
But I wanted to check about a diagnosis, the fact that you were diagnosed in South Africa, and the people used to be diagnosed transsexual, which was like something that needs to be taken care of. Was that something that helped people to understand and accept this better, or it made it
Yes.
worse? For example, for your parents, when they hear, oh, there's a doctor's official document here saying
Yes.
she is transsexual.
Yes.
Was that a
Yes.
more was that something that made things a little bit easier?
Of course it did. Of course it did, because it was a third party who was qualified to make such a statement. And it was on black and white on paper, it was written. And it's like a prescription that you get for medicine. That the doctor said, now look, if you want to get better, you've got to buy those tablets. But if you don't want to get better, tear up the prescription and be ill for the rest of your life. And what would be the natural thing to do? It would be to go and
go ahead
with a prescription and start taking the medication. So that my grandfather never accepted it, but I mean, he was very much my senior. When I was 23, he was already in his 70s. And he never called me by my new name. He always referred to me as my male name. He was the only one. My mother and my sister stood by me through the whole story. It was very difficult for them too. I can't imagine that it wasn't difficult for them. But they, and to this day, my sister still will come up for me if anyone has anything negative to say about me.
They will stand up.
She will stand up for me. I lost my mother already in 1960, at 1989. That's 36 years ago, I lost my mother. She only knew me for 14 years being a woman. And of those 14 years, I was all over South Africa, really. I was transferred from this. I'd then been in banking, as you now know, in Pretoria. And something which you really cannot fathom how one was supported those days, and something which I, to this day, I can't explain it, but I cannot tell you that anybody has undergone such wonderful support. Because the one bank where I was working, when I had to go into hospital for the operation, actually arranged with an opposition bank to transfer me to the operation bank to start a new life when I was discharged from hospital as a woman. Can you imagine what a big step that was? For two opposition banks in a conservative society?
To come together on this issue.
And to allow me to go from the one to the other? I still to this day consider it a miracle.
It sounds like.
Because it wasn't anything that was normal. It was totally abnormal. I mean, you as a person were not considered very normal.
Do you think that then, because for me, I still want to dig deeper into the diagnosis, that did that help even with these banks to, understand better? They're helping somebody who has a problem, a condition that needs to be healed.
I do believe it did, because they were in constant touch with the doctor, and the doctor gave them feedback as to what the process was. It was a very to and fro scenario, and there was a support foundation on which I was able to build myself. Which I again say, I am very, very fortunate that I had the people in my life at the right time. Because without them, I wouldn't have made a success of my life.
I would have been even That would have been terrible if you didn't have the kind of support
But
that came your way.
you also some colleagues in the bank were
Mm,
a support system as well. Never mind friends from outside the bank, but
yeah.
people who were your colleagues. Um, I can't tell you, you know, if you just consider the fact you come out of hospital, you've got to buy clothing. It's summer, autumn, winter, and spring. It's morning, noon, and night. It's work, it's social, it's evening wear. It's underwear and top wear and bottom wear and high wear. It's church
Everything,
wear. Everything at the same time.
you had to change everything at once.
Exactly. Take out everything off the cupboard, get rid
Yes.
of it, and put everything new in the cupboard. Where does the
Right.
money come from?
Yeah.
Where does the money come from? I had the good fortune of being done in an academic hospital where I only had to pay the admission fee to hospital, and that the operation didn't cost me a further cent. Not 1 cent, just the admission fee of 36 Rand those days. Can you imagine in South Africa, if you have such an operation done in South Africa today, it has to be done by a private doctor, because there is a waiting list at the academic hospital in South Africa of between 25 and 30 years for people to undergo sexual reassignment or gender reassignment, whatever it's called now. I call it the sex change, as I've said, to undergo that because of theatre time that's been allocated is right at the bottom of theatre time, only that little bit, because it's considered plastic surgery and it's not a life-threatening disease. That is why in South Africa there is, on average, a total of 6 to 7 operations done per year.
With the
But
government.
by the government.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people have to go and have it done with a private doctor who
Right.
doesn't have that experience, or many of them go abroad and have it done in Dubai, or they go to Thailand, and they come back and there is no follow-up with any other doctors to see everything heals properly, that you're doing things correctly, and
Right.
that the end result is a success. Now, I've encountered 1 or 2 people who have gone to Thailand and have come back very, very happy. Everything is done. They only spent 4 days in Thailand in hospital and recovering.
Yes.
Came back to South Africa and things went wrong. And nothing could be done about it. You know, if one has to go into depth as far as that's concerned, it won't be able to be taken up in your program. But
That's sad.
there are very bad things that happen if you are not looked after properly.
That's true. That's true. Because you need to protect yourself from a lot and be able to live healthily even after that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Before we get to the end, I would like to ask more about the book and where it is right now, how people are able to access it in English is also.
No, I wish I could tell you that it's available in English. There you've got on the screen now, as far as the book is concerned. I would love to have it in English. But being Afrikaans speaking myself, I find it very difficult to translate it into English.
Right.
Because Afrikaans is a very emotional language. And it's based very much on being regional. So there are some, you can translate the language, but you cannot translate the emotion. If I can encounter somebody who can translate it into English, they're welcome to have a try. I tried to do it myself, but I couldn't get it right. If I have to do it in English, and I think it'll reach a far wider audience if one could issue it or distribute it in English, because of the fact that so many more people could benefit possibly by the contents.
Right.
Because this was, look, in South Africa, we have 11 official languages in South Africa, Afrikaans being one of them. And Afrikaans, no such book existed in Afrikaans. No autobiography existed in Afrikaans, which is why I wrote the book in Afrikaans, so that it could be a reference manual for parents who disregarded their children and pushed them aside as somebody, that's nonsense, my dear. You are speaking nonsense. Mommy loves you, but get that out of your head. That's absolute rubbish. It had to be a support system for parents to teach them how to support their children and why their children needed their love and attention at such a difficult time of their lives.
That book is needed. That information is needed today.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. Perhaps I was stupid to write it in Afrikaans and not in English, but it's because I live in a country where the Afrikaans people need that understanding. Yeah. Remember, I tell you, South Africa was a very conservative country at the time. But even today, South Africa, still to a very big and high degree, is a very, very conservative country. In spite of the political scenario in South Africa, it's still very there's such a lot of beliefs in South Africa that the only way you can describe it is conservative. It is conservative.
It's conservative.
Conservatism overrules non-conservatism.
All right. The studio has informed people that they can contact us if they're looking for that book.
Yes. Yes, they can. I'd be grateful. I have a friend this afternoon who actually bought 5 books at once.
I will talk to my colleague Elise to be a storyteller for me. I'm sure she can tell that story very well from the book. We can have book reading.
She played a very big role in getting the book published. Let's put it that
way. But
way.
I would like to ask you, as we close now, at least you have lived through a time, from what you have just said, when being your true self came with a lot of risks. You were lucky in so many ways, but there was a lot that happened around you also.
Well, I mean, you could never. They couldn't vouch that you come out whole on the other side.
And just beyond the surgery, but also life in the army, there was risk there in the all the sports that you were just pushed through, just living a certain point in life when you are the only one who had the information of what was happening to you and had no one to talk to. So
you were the only one who could protect yourself.
And you're the only one who could protect yourself. Yeah. So with all that, if you could leave one message, just one message, one piece of wisdom for young trans and gender diverse Africans, even probably some of them might identify as transsexuals, but we are so many, very diverse, who are navigating their own journeys today. What would that message be? I'm going to ask the studio to leave you on the screen by yourself, to leave a message for young, trans, gender diverse, transsexual, all of them, young, and they're navigating, because some of those challenges are still happening to a lot of people, alone and frightened and confused. And not knowing what to do. Many of them have not met people like us. They're just alone in a village somewhere, navigating this. And if you could leave a message, wisdom or encouragement.
Let's help you.
So what we are going to need from you, you'll be alone on the screen, because this message can be cut out for somebody in the future, long from now, probably. You could introduce yourself first, just introduce yourself, a little bit about you that is relevant to the message that you're giving, and then leave a message for them.
Right, let's try.
So as soon as you're on the screen, you can start for yourself. I'll be silent. Don't go out.
There I am, and I'm going to be looking at myself and being very shy. If I can actually leave a message to all the youngsters or young people who need help, please don't give up hope. Persist, endure, persist, prove that you have got enough responsibility to face the future, not just on your own, but with some form of understanding of one another. Everybody needs support. And so, apart from yourself, your parents too need support. They need to understand what they need to assist with, how they can assist, and not just cast you aside and say, you're a piece of nonsense. You don't know what you're speaking about. Endure, persist, endure. That is the only narrative that I can really give you that will carry you through life. Don't protest it too much. Be grateful to those who help. Never, never point a finger at anybody else and think you're better than they. If they are speaking about you in derogatory terms, it's because they don't understand your problems. Make them understand the problem. Don't make it difficult for them to understand the problem. And you'll make life so much easier for yourself. And that's the message I'd like to leave with you all. Love yourself. It doesn't make you a narcissist if you love yourself. You must love yourself before you love anybody else. Otherwise, you wouldn't know how to love them. Grant everybody your wisdom to make themselves a better person. Love and leave you. Cheers for now.
Thank you so much, Elise. Elise says, persist, endure. That has been very, very prominent in that message for all of us, because all of us, believe me, are younger than Elise Bishop, probably. Just 1, 2, 3 people might be older if they're there. But that's a good message to all of us. Elise Bishop and Elise, your life is a gateway. You know, it is like a bridge.
In South Africa, they call it a trailblazer. And it is something that is something
you are a trailblazer. And what you have just shared with us is, you know, courage, and courageous, and it's courage itself. So we thank you so much. And here on behalf of TIHA, because people haven't heard about Elise Bishop on the continent so much, we want more people to hear about this. We want also your legacy to be carried forward. We want your story to be known. And here at TIHA, and on behalf of TIHA, Trans and Intersex History Africa, we honor you, Elizabeth Bishop, for the way for trans and gender diverse people in Africa. And
thank you very much, Victor.
And
I appreciate that sincerely.
But Lizzo wanted to play something for us before we leave. And if studio could just go ahead. person in Africa and our elder, somebody we respect so much. My name is Victor, and this was one of those moments where we go so back in the 50s in history to pick our stories. Thank you so much. Until next time, this was Trans Intersex History Africa Archival Conversations. Au revoir.
Au revoir.